when I first got in, I'm like, oh, I want 300 cars, I want this, I want that. And I was like, no, I'm good with 20 right now, so I could get the
20
groundwork.
is a lot. I can
Yes.
only imagine 20.
Yeah.
But all those 20 cars are not yours, though, right?
Right, exactly. So I have 4 of my own cars I rent out, and a fifth personal one. And then I co-host the other like 16.
Okay.
So it's about 16. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 6 commission partners.
Okay.
So one of them, he has the most cars. He has 5 cars. It's right underneath me. And then everybody else is pretty much 2 and 3. So then we have another guy, he has 3, then 2, and then another people that has like 2 and 1. So it's growing. It grew pretty fast. This all started back in November. I had my first partner. Well, not first partner. I'll take that back. And I actually have more partners than that. I forgot the very, very first one. But I actually started co-hosting a year ago. And I did it through Turo. And then I realized, like, this isn't any money. I had these people wanted me to rent their cars out. And I'm like, I knew it wasn't going to be any money. It wasn't going to be worth it. But they had brought me the cars already. And I was like, kind of like getting private rentals and people asking me about renting privately. And I was always eager to make more money because when I bought my cars for Turo, I had like newer cars, like a 2021, a 2020, a 2019, and a 2018.
And you financed those?
All of them. Yep, all of them. And when I bought them, I was like, I'm going to make $80 a day on Turo. I'm going to be making so much money. And then I got on Turo, like, you can't even surpass $50 a day before you're not getting booked.
Right, yeah.
Because all the fees, you got to include that in there because your car won't move. So it was to the point where I got all these loans now. They have to get paid. So I got to book them at $50 a day. Ran all my miles up. I think I made about 50,000 on Turo that year when I had my cars on there. And
you said how many cars was that?
That was 5.
5. Okay.
I was 4. Because I had my car on there, but I think I rented out one time, my personal car. And then, so it was 4 cars, and I was just kind of like trying to keep them going. That whatever rate that I could minimally like have it as high as I could, where it would kind of stay going. And then I was realizing like this isn't enough money to live off of, and that's what I had kind of expected, like for it to at least become more than a side hustle when you got 4 cars. And then I quickly realized like this is not how it's done. You don't go and finance vehicles for this type of industry. It's okay if you do, but it is putting you in the bad position to win in the end. Yeah. Like, for one, if you get in a car accident, you're already down value because you didn't pay off as much as you owe. So now you have to worry about if you're going to owe if your car crashes, or if you're able to replace that car loan, because now you have so many open loans. It's not like you can just go and replace the car. You have to think of all those different things when you're coming into the car rental industry, because you can have an accident that puts you out for 3 months.
And you still gotta pay.
Exactly. So it's like
500, 700,
exactly
1,000.
for each month, and so it's like you lose when you don't start off on the right foot. So I was already in there to the point where it was like, you can't give the cars back. You're here now. This is where you got to make something of it. And so that's when I kind of started discovering like maybe I could do it privately. But it was getting really ghetto. With that, I was like having people off Turo, and it was like they were just doing stuff and breaking stuff, and I was getting, all those small damage claims, or you'd be like, this is becoming a lot, especially when you have Turo to back you, tickets, people getting tickets. So I kind of like shied away from it because I was like, this is too much. And then I had a recall on my Hyundai. And so I wasn't able to operate that on Turo while I had an accident on another car. And so it really urged me to get that recalled car out and running. So I just had somebody who was renting like $1,000 a month. And I was okay with that. It was covering a note. I was making a little money on top. Mm-hmm. But then as my contact grew and more people were wanting to rent, I kind of like, I was like, it's something that I need to see, like, how can I take this serious? And I started doing research on, like, what is the proper way to set it up? The things you need to do. You need bond insurance if you're going to be an independent rental company, a minimum of $50,000. You need to make sure you have the proper insurance, not just like car insurance, but business insurance, so that if anything happens, that they can at least cover you minimally, because there's a lot of risk in the business. But also, if you're strategic about how you go about it. So now that I am where I am now and experiencing all of these different things that happen that scared me from going into it, I kind of did as much research, and I just kind of took a leap and was like, let me see how this will work. And, it started with my 4 cars. Another guy brought me 2 cars and a van. So those 3 other cars. So it was 8. One of the cars got totaled out. Luckily, it was under a full coverage insurance policy. So they paid out. I don't have to do any claim with my insurance. So that totaled out. And then we had another total out, which somebody was in a shootout in the city. Shot the car up. And luckily it worked in our favor because the girl who rented it had Geico policy, and so it was a smooth claim process. We actually totaled it because we wanted to. It didn't have to be totaled out. We just kind of wanted to not deal with that car anymore in general and just go get a new one, which we were able to just replace. But as far as the accidents, we were so blessed to not have to deal with that. And then as I continuously was running the business, I figured out how to do the tickets, so I can transfer the tickets to the driver who was liable at the time. So we don't have to worry about the tickets anymore. And then the next biggest thing that hit was Lula coming out and saying that they were not paying out claims anymore, which is so scary, because this is the most the biggest insurance company. They're not paying out claims right now, and they're not accepting. I don't know. They're not accepting new people in, but they're still taking our money. Now, originally their policy stated this is insurance for if you have somebody come in and you want them to rent privately, but apparently they changed their stipulations to you can rent privately, but we are a secondary insurance, which means that the renter should have coverage. Insurance. Exactly. So, and what I've learned from that was that that's how mostly, not all insurance is. You can't operate and continuously make claims on insurance policies. This is not Turo. Even though they're commercial policy, all you have is 2 claims, maybe 2. You might just have 1, depending on how expensive it was before you're dropped. So for that to be your whole structure, for that to be your whole structure, and you're depending on this company to cover all of these 20 plus cars, or how many ever cars you got. Once you're dropped from them, your rental game is over. You can go out and get finance through, not finance, you can't go out and get insurance through commercial unless all your vehicles are set up properly, and it's really expensive. So it's kind of almost putting people out of the game there. That's why Lula changed the game with this. Anybody can rent privately from their homes, and people took advantage of that, which put them in a bad place, because I know that people were probably just letting cars go left and right, which makes the accidents go up, which makes probably their business model have to have changed. So with that, I was lucky enough to not have an accident. We still covered under Lula. We have rental cover, which is offered through HQ. It's a supplemental insurance that they sell through the site. So if somebody comes and books, we'll just advocate hey, you have to either have full coverage insurance, you either have to have the rental cover, or you have to purchase our damage waiver, which is something we just implemented as a rental car company. Something that is so detrimental, you will not make it in the rental game if you do not have your own account set up that you can pay out on your own claims. Never going to work. You're not going to be successful. You're going to have enough accidents where you get dropped. No insurance company is going to mess with a run loss report of so many accidents. And you're going to have accidents. This is an accident prone business. It's just what it is. So you have to set aside that money so that when those things happen, you're able to take care of them yourself. Right. So what I realized after research is that is how Enterprise operates. That is how Turo operates. That is how any independent rental company operates, is either selling some type of product that can then transfer over for you to have that reserve income, where selling a protection plan, selling roadside assistance, selling, all of the different fees that you can include in your rental price. But ultimately, that is created so you can put that money to the side. The way that we do it is now we offer a protection plan, not insurance, because you can't offer insurance unless you're a licensed insurance agent, which is why Turo also calls their insurance protection. It's not insurance. They offer a protection plan, which is an agreement between you and them that they'll protect your vehicle for up to this amount of money if you do these things. So essentially, we've adopted that same thing where we charging the guest the insurance, and this money is allocated into an account. So the math on that is $12 a day every time the car go out. So if it don't go out, there's no risk there, so you don't have to worry about that. But if it does go out, it's making $12 a day. At 30 days a month, it's $360 a month that you're saving per car, that the guest is paying for, that you're not coming out of your own pocket for.
Right, because they signed up for that.
Exactly. And then that money can grow in a compounded account that sits, so that when, say, here I am now, I've not had to file any claims. If I started this years ago, I would be sitting on an account with $200,000+ and growing constantly, consistently. So now I have enough money to total out any of my cars, and I don't need insurance other than the liability, because that's required by the state. But the liability portion would be if they damage somebody else's car, that's when your insurance would kick in, and liability is not that hard to get. So it's like just knowing that information, and like knowing that is like one of the main things that I see out here that people want to get into this. Like, you can't do this. It will not thrive unless you had the mindset that, like, this, I am really becoming my own bank to a certain extent. You have to become your own bank and supply your own funding as far as paying out claims, because no insurance company is going to do that. Now, they will insure the liability portion, but your collision damage, because the more damage claims that you have, a lot of the times they're like not a lot. They're minimum. You might get a guest who damages maybe $2,000 of work, or maybe $100. Maybe it's not a lot. Maybe it's just the windshield. But that's when their deductible will come in. You take part of their deductible that they put down, so that eats away some of that cost, and then you can take that money and then do your claim yourself, where you can get the cheapest rate and get it done for low. So that way you're not losing as much as you would like if you were paying out.
Got you.
So like if you was paying out, like Turo pays us out, it's different because they have to match that rate that a reputable shop matches. But a lot of times I've gotten $2,000 work for $500. So depending, if you're smart, you should always win on a claim. That's how a claim is done, right? Extra money. If you're not making money on a claim, you're actually losing, because for an example, my car was in an accident. I got an estimate. They estimated the damages to be $2,000. But the damages was so much because the bumper had to come off. It wasn't necessarily the physical damage to the car. I turned around and I purchased the parts for like less than $200, and I charged somebody was able to take the bumper and everything off for $100. I made like a $1,500 profit. So, those types of things is where you take that profit, you put it in your account now. Now you're straight, now you're up. You should always be on the up and up. So it's like if you start out with that mindset, you start off saving, you start off with a low risk, make your risk as low as possible, use as much different insurance, make sure they have insurance, make sure they get insurance until you get to that point where that you at least have an account that can pay out small claims. So like if you're dealing with a total and you absolutely have to use your insurance, it's there. But for the most part, until you get to that point, you can definitely, save until you're able to do that. And then you can take away that expense. Now I don't need full coverage collision. So now you can pay half of probably what you were paying just for liability. And now you're just taking a risk on yourself by building this account up and saying, I'm choosing my renters like this. These are the stipulations. These are the deposits. Making all the numbers make sense. Because at the end of the day, at 20 cars, you're only going to have so many accidents versus how many are actually rolling. As long as you can keep them rolling, you got clientele and it's moving, you're going to make more money than you lose. And that's why Turo's in business, because there's more cars running than there'll ever be in accidents.
Right. Dang. Okay. You know a lot of information. We just never did the intro for the
I'm
podcast.
sorry.
Hey, everybody. My name is Phwealthy Man, and thanks for tuning in to the Phwealthy Podcast. I got a special guest today. We have
Mia.
Mia, and what do you do?
I rent cars.
Okay, so you have a private rental agency, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and can you just tell the viewers how did you get into this private rental agency?
So I am by nature a massage therapist. I've been doing massage for 13 years. That is primarily like my lifeline. I love massage. I love people. How I got into cars was the pandemic, and people weren't getting massages anymore, and I had to figure out a different way to bring in money. And cars kind of came about from me renting myself. And once I saw the model, I was like, I really think that I can make some money here.
Was it
And
like a friend that kind of told you about it, or you just rented a car
so
yourself and
I
you
just
just
rented
thought
it.
the light bulb went
I
on?
actually liked Turo because I was one of those renters that didn't have a credit card, couldn't rent the Enterprise, or it was too expensive. This was actually back probably a little bit when I first heard about Turo. They were called relay rides. So I don't know if you remember.
I heard of that. I wasn't on the app,
Yes,
but I have heard
relay
about that.
rides is
That's a
the
long time ago,
original.
ain't it?
Yes, very long. So long ago that's when Turo was so cheap. Anybody can rent. This is before the trip fee, before the all the expenses. I think I rented a Jeep in California. That was the first time I used tour or relay rides. And I think I rented a Jeep for like $45 per day. No extra fees, nothing.
What kind of Jeep was it?
It was like a Jeep Wrangler.
Okay.
And it was pretty new. So it was like to be able to rent that and just have your driver's license and debit card, that was crazy to me. So I always had a liking for the company ever since then. I said, oh, this is great. You can pick up cars anywhere. When the pandemic happened, I was doing Instacart, and so I was renting at the time. And the guy in Tinley Park, shout out to him because he's actually in Chicago, and I wrote him and let him know like you inspired me. His name is Andy. He has like over probably like 3,000 trips now. But he inspired me. He had the cutest cars, like just small cash cars that you could just be like, okay, $30 a day, $40, something to get around in where it made sense because I was, making money while I was renting it. But at the same time, I'm looking like he got this car he paid cash for, and I'm turning around, I'm paying him $1,000 for this car. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that just made me feel like I could be doing the same thing. And that's how I ended up doing cars. I went and did a little research, not a lot, but I did a little research, and I was like, I could finance 5 cars at one time. That was the research that I did, because they tell people like, oh, I've even seen people do 10, which is crazy.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, so the thing that people are doing is you're going to finance a vehicle before all of the cars actually post.
Right. So, it's a dude on a podcast who was talking about that. Are you talking about that dude?
I
forgot what his name was, but he like went and bought like a whole bunch of supercars, and he financed them, but he got them all like on the same day. Mm-hmm. So when he went to different car places, they wouldn't see it on his credit until later. Is that what you did?
Yeah, no, that's what I did, but I actually didn't do it all the same day. Mine was over months, and some of them did hit, so they did know. I got one of my car loans through the same company, so it's like they definitely knew. It wasn't like a sneak type of thing, but I would probably say even the last one, they were pretty far apart, but they hadn't all hit. But they were like, as the cars were on there, they knew like you have another car because they could see the other cars. So it was like maybe like 2 cars. Once I got 3, but that last one, they seen all my cars on there, and they still gave me the 5th one. But that was just like.
Was that through the dealership or through like a
dealers? So I went to multiple different dealerships: Indiana, Westmont, Calumet City, Room online. So that was pretty
you bought cool. A car through Room?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting experience. Like to just not have to do anything and get the car delivered. But Yeah, so I've definitely been through the experience a lot of times to feel like it's different when you do it 5 times versus 1 time, because then you're looking at the people like, I know what I'm talking about here. You're not about to just try to sell me anything. They do. In
So
fact,
hard.
I'm waiting to actually go to arbitration with one of them because they like did dealer fraud in my contract. So I'm working on getting my whole contract canceled and my money and title in my hand. So yeah, that's what prompted me. Like when I had so many cars, I'm looking at my contracts like this isn't right. And certain things that they would tell you when you signing up, just starting and like ring bells versus like when you go in and you kind of anxious, you ain't got a car in 5 years. They play off of that energy like, oh, this person really wants this car. I'm gonna tell them they gotta pay this and their interest rate gotta be this. And when I first got my BMW, which I was so happy I never had like a luxury car. I never actually had my credit so good that like I think I was approved in 2 minutes. Like I never usually I'll be in there waiting and they like, oh, we're searching for a bank still. Like I think I was in there like a few minutes. They were like, you're approved. Let's go test drive the car. I knew I'm like, oh, I'm leaving with this car. Which I did. But then after I got that first car, I was like, well, I wasn't as thirsty to get the rest. I kind of like really was like, I think the second car I got was from Mercedes-Benz of Westmont, which was a Mazda. And that process was so smooth. It was like I didn't even have to go in until I signed. I called, I gave them my information, ran everything over the phone. They were like, you're approved, we just need you to sign. So I go in, I signed. And like I made sure my experience after that was just kind of like I went in and made the rules. Like I was telling them, I'm not sitting in here. You either want to sell me your car or you don't. And a lot of times they have you sitting in these places for hours. Yeah, and it's like you can run my credit and like call me when you're done. But they're doing that to play off of your emotion. Like you've been sitting here, you're drained. And now you feel like these are your options and you want to get something. So you want to get out of here. You don't want to leave out of there with exactly. Nothing. So I was just kind of like, that was experiencing itself, getting so many different cars and seeing the, each time being like similar, but seeing their tactics. Like you're trying to sell me on a brand new car a whole total package and insurance and coverage when the car comes with a standard factory warranty. Don't sell me no extra $6,000 package for tires, rims. No. So it's like it's funny when you see them try to do that when you know like, okay, I just got 3 more cars. I don't need that.
You know, another thing I hate though at the dealership is when they always got to go back and talk to the financial manager. You know, they can never talk to the financial manager right in front of you. Yeah. It's always like some room
you got to go back
and closed or just not in front of you. And I hate that so much. But you got to stay in the chair.
Exactly. And that's honestly, I stopped talking to salespeople. I would call and ask to speak to the finance manager. Once I got so many cars and I was like looking to get a 6, I said, the sales manager is nothing you can do for me. I need to talk to the finance manager so they can tell me what my position is. I don't even want to sit here and waste time because you're not the person. You're going through dirt. Let's cut you out of the picture here.
They don't even be knowing.
Exactly. So that's why I come in and I go straight to the finance manager and they try to put me with sales and I'm like, no. I don't want to go with the salesperson. And if they don't want to help me that way, I'll go to another dealership because you're on bull crap. Right. Like, you're trying to play with me because I want to know exactly what's going on. Don't play with me. Don't play with my rate. Don't try to make other stuff in the deal. Like, and that's really all that is to kind of stop you from getting to the middleman.
Right.
So.
Okay, so I want to make sure I got an understanding. So you were doing massaging and you started renting cars out to do Instacart. You started renting a car for yourself, but then doing Instacart, the light bulb went off in your head that you could have a rental car agency. So you started going out buying these cars. You bought the first 5 cars, and that was all in your personal, your name, personal credit, no business at the time.
Yeah, no business.
And you was just taking those cars and putting them on relay rides at the time, right?
Well, this was Turo at the time. So relay rides is when I very first rented before they ever became Turo. So that was probably like 10 years ago. Yeah, I was just a guest.
Okay.
I didn't become a host until 2021. And I actually had put my personal car on there before I sold it, which was a Mazda CX, CX3. And then I got all of those cars because I was thinking like, oh, this is going pretty good. It's getting booked. I think it'll do good. And then I
And you
thought,
didn't have a car too, huh?
yeah, so I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was using that one and like not having one. And then I was like, well, let me get one for myself and then a couple others. And I would say it probably took me about 6 months until I realized like this is really bad. Like this is bad. Like this is not enough money. Because that was the only thing I'm doing. This wasn't a side income. Like I want to spend and I want to comfortably be living off of this. I didn't want it to be a side thing.
And you wasn't working with nobody at the time? You ain't have like a partner or
No, I was
nobody
like,
helping you, a mentor or anything? You was just on
no,
YouTube,
I was just on
University?
YouTube and just actually what really inspired me was a guy who I gave a massage to his mom, and his mom was having some issues with her spine, and it was like they were telling me she was going to the doctor, and I explained to them exactly what was going on because I've seen it before. It was like a nerve that was being pinched. And the recommendations the doctor was giving, I was like, that's not gonna work. Like she's not gonna recover from the medication. She needs something that's gonna take the pressure off of that nerve that's making it inflamed. And when I explained that to him, he was like, I just think that's so crazy that we've been doing this for weeks. And, I told that same information to another doctor and they looked at me like, who told you this? And you're right. And he just was intrigued by the fact that I was able to explain that. And when he found out I was doing cars, he was like, oh no, I want to make some money too. And then he was the first person I co-host. And he was the first person who had a commercial van, and he pushed me to do it. He's like, put this on your Turo, we're gonna make some money. And I'm like, nobody wants to rent out this big van. It was like one of them big vans, like passenger.
You still got it on your website, right? I think
So
I
that's
saw it.
another van. So another commission partner purchased one just like it actually.
Okay.
So this one actually is a little it's actually a year older, but looks newer than the one that we had, which is crazy because this one is pristine, no rust, nothing. So this one, it actually set more people, but it did so good on Turo that, he put his other personal car on there. And that van kept getting me tickets in front of my house because it was commercial and it was supposed to be parked outside. So he was just saying, like, you should look for some place that's like we can park the cars at. And I started looking for spaces around here. And that was close to my home. And I was thinking, like, getting discouraged because a lot of people were like, you're doing what? You're going to have a lot of cars parked? Nah, they were just like not having it. It was no good area for it. And I kept on pushing and I drove past where I'm at now. I saw the number on the door and I called him. And Al, which is the guy who owns the building now, nicest, coolest guy ever. And he was just like, you want to do what? And he was like, okay. He was like, I think that can work. And he's like, I'm going to give you a try. He's very like just a good person and willing to work with me. He's like, because our lot is not that big. He's like, well, if you need extra space, you could park the cars along back. And there's a lot of opportunity here for him letting us in and being able to work with us. Because a lot of people was just immediately like, no. Like, it's just so many issues. The parking.
Just taking up space?
Taking up space.
Okay.
Because, like, a lot of these facilities, like, even now, like, you see this parking? Mm-hmm. It's completely packed from side to side. So it's conflicting when you're trying to just have vehicles sit.
Right.
So ultimately, that's not our goal, is to have the vehicles sit, but they do sit. So, like, right now, I may have, like, 5 over there that's not going out right now. But he was just, still, like, willing, like, well, if that gets too much, then you can park them here. So I was like, okay. And then he took a chance on me, and we've been here for a year, and it's been really good. Like, the operations of it, we were so blessed to get, like, what is like a storefront set up, a window, so we're visible to people, drop box, like the whole setup, so to make this experience so much easier. So that's what compelled me to just kind of keep implementing more structure into the business, where I did the HQ. Like, okay, because I was just doing the rentals, writing out the agreements. And I'm like, this is not going to work. This has to be legit. You got to take payments this way. People stop zelling me in.
Wait a minute. So before you get into the HQ, I just want to make sure that the viewers and listeners are following. So you started buying these cars, and you had like 5 cars on the Turo platform. And then you were also still doing massaging at the time, and you met that guy who put his truck on, I guess, under your name on the platform,
Turo,
right? Okay, so as you were doing that on Turo, you wanted to get a space to park all of your cars, and then you started doing it private, or were you still doing Turo before you went private?
I was still doing Turo before I went private.
At your location, though?
At my location. Okay. I was just doing some privates. So it was kind of maybe like, maybe half and half actually. So like some that was private, and then the other half that was just running on Turo, because they were like long-term guests that I was getting staying in the car. It's like another girl who stayed in the car for like 6 months, and So
would that determine if you would do it private or on Turo at that time?
Yeah, at that time, yes. Like I was more long-term because it seemed like less risk.
Long-term on Turo, short-term.
No, short-term on Turo, long-term private. If you're not going to rent long-term, then it's kind of like, it's a lot of risk by having people jump in and out of the car. Versus when you get one person in the car, they usually try to treat it like it's theirs. For the most part, they don't want it to be, raggedy. Not to say like they don't damage and it be dirty, but these people think that the car is theirs. After 30 days, it's a good chance that they are thinking that the car is theirs. I've even, like, the guy now, he's been in it for a year, and it's like, you do realize that's still my car, so they get attached to it. You have to let them know. But so yeah.
Okay, so you came to your location. So you was doing some on Turo, some privately. How did you go from some private, some on Turo? How did you go to all private? How was that?
So it was just becoming, I was getting my own guests. Like, that was just it. I was started getting calls from Google. I was getting repeats to the point where it was no time for Turo if I could make $80 a day.
And then, and my bad to cut you off again, you had your own company at this time, though, right?
Yeah.
You wasn't doing it just
I had the own company, and once I got in this spot, it was already, the business name was set up, and I set up ADP, which is a payroll system, so everybody gets paid like like a company would. And once I had structured everything like that, I knew that I was like, okay, I want to take it serious. What's the next steps, and how do I get this to be a permanent thing? How do I get more people to trust me with their cars? And the next thing after that would be when I got my next commission partners, because at that time I had 2. And then the next one that came in, which is the guy who has like the most cars on there now, he came on and he brought 5 cars. He brought 5 cars, and then he brought on like 4 people who brought on cars. So a lot of people came with him. So this was from November to now. And we increased from having 6 cars to 22. In such a short amount of time. So that was
a big jump right there.
It was huge. It was almost like I always thought, like, our goal was 30 cars. We haven't hit it yet because we've been like, cars have just been coming in and out, whether they was taking them off and selling them or something got an accident. It was another guy whose private car got an accident that was supposed to come on. Or cars are just down for maintenance or something like that. So it was like, as we're trying to hit our 30, it was like cars coming in and out. So we kind of like somewhere between 20 and 23 cars. But as I got to that number, I'm like, I don't really want 30 cars. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is risky. Like, the more and more cars I was getting, I'm like, this is riskier than I thought. I was so excited and like, this is so great. And then it all like started hitting me like, I'm scared every day of an accident happening and having to call a commission partner like, your car is total. Even if the insurance is going to pay out, they're out of money for who knows how long when claims take time. Sometimes months. So like, that made me afraid, on top of Trying to keep track of the guests, and if they're going out of town. I had a guy last week who drove to Atlanta, didn't say anything. But that's the thing, I shouldn't have to ask if you're going out of town. If you're going out of town, that should be fine.
They should just tell you.
Not even really. Like, I mean, now I'm getting to the point where we're changing that, and I see why it's like not really makes sense for you to tell them if they can or can't go out of town. Because like, what kind of rental company is that?
Right.
I bought it to rent it, and most of the time, real renting people are using it to travel. Mm-hmm. So others are like maybe their cars down, their locals. Those are great people too, but ultimately it didn't make sense. And the only reason why I didn't want to rent privately was because I was afraid that what if we have a breakdown, and then I have to call this guest like, your car is 2,000 miles away. You have to pay to get it back. So now that's what I'm implementing so that they don't have to worry about that. Now I'm implementing that account where if the car does get towed, I need to be told, we can pay for that. We have money set aside for that.
Okay, so you're talking about a separate bank account or some kind of like
auto body? So a separate account that will go in that same account with the insurance that you're collecting from the guests. The $12 a day, the $5 a day, how much ever you choose to charge per day. But every time that car goes out, it's making money for that specific purpose, going into a specific account, growing at at least a consistent rate. If you didn't put it in like a money market account or a high yielding savings account or something like that, where it will sit, but it will also grow. So you're not losing from it sitting. It's not, wouldn't benefit you none to just keep putting money in an account, but an account that's actually growing off of the money that's sitting, because it's going to sit. Ultimately, you're going to have less accidents than you do. So that's why it's like, once you get your account where you want it to be, you should be making money off of that account. Now you should have so much money in that account that it covers your car's values if they were to ever total out. And then at the end of the year, you still have a profit off of that account. It's actually now making you money. Now you don't have to, not only do you not have to worry about an accident, now you're taking money out of that account and you can reinvest it in another way. So it's just,
that's smart.
Exactly. And it's the only way to go. Like, you can't survive any other way. It's never going to work. You're going to tap out eventually.
Right. Yeah, that you can't sustain that. Let's talk about more of the insurance though, because on Turo, I know that you can get insurance through.
Can we take this outside? I'm so sorry. The lady is here. Not already have full coverage insurance, we do require that you purchase our daily damage waiver. Okay. Alrighty. Did you how many days were you looking to rent a car for?
About a week. Will you give me a weekly rate?
Let me see here.
So we are back on the podcast because you had to go do some work. Somebody was getting into a car, so we had to take a little break. But now we're back, and I just want to talk about now. I want to talk more about the insurance part, insurance of things. So I know on Turo has their own insurance through the app, through the software. But once you went off of Turo, how did you set up insurance for the private rentals? What does that look like?
So I got really excited when Lula came out. And that was super huge for the Turo industry and everybody who had cars. They were going to rent their cars out privately. That was my opportunity. That was my golden entrance for I'm going to do this privately. Because before it was here and there, I was using my personal insurance. I had full coverage on my cars, and I was just kind of taking a risk here and there. On the 5 cars.
How much was you paying every month?
Actually, it was pretty decent. It was $560. Under $700. That's close to what I pay now for commercial. So that was great. You couldn't beat that. That's why I was taking that chance. But when Lula came out, their stipulations for people who weren't having their vehicles in their name and just the easy process. You didn't have to have a car minimum at the time. And so that was like the thing that made me be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and take this risk because now I have commercial insurance. I don't have nothing to worry about. That's my mindset that I went in going into it. Like, I didn't have anything to worry about. And as time went on, I was like, yeah, might have a little thing to worry about. As the fleet grew, I was so concerned with making sure the fleet got to 30 cars because once you get to 30 cars, they offered a discount. And
that's why your goal was 30.
Yes, that's why the goal was 30. And so I was like, oh, we can save $50 per car if we get to 30. And as we got to like that 22 mark, I started thinking really hard. I actually spoke to another guy who said that he got dropped from Lula because he had an accident. And he actually had 2 insurance policies because he had 2 businesses, which I was like, that was smart. He opened up originally 2 different policies with Lula. So in the event of an accident, it splits up your ratio of accidents. So like, say you got 5 cars on this policy, 5 cars on that one. Then 1 car gets an accident. It just helps out with the accident ratio. So he did have an accident. I think he filed a claim. They dropped him. But now he has the other one.
Wait, he had 2 policies with Lula?
Yeah, with 2 different companies.
2. Okay, so one with Lula, one with somebody else.
No, one with Lula. They were both with Lula, but both of them was 2 different companies. So he had 2 different business names.
Oh, 2 different businesses.
Yes, 2
from
different.
him.
Exactly.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
his name, but 2 different businesses. So I was like, that was a smart technique that I would have loved to do. Instead of saving $150 per car and getting them all on one policy, split them up. So that way you take away so much risk of 30 cars being encompassed on one policy and something happening, and now you don't have a policy at all.
Right.
So I was like, that's what urged me to be like, woo, that is pretty risky to put so many cars on one policy that's dependent upon your operations. And so that's why I changed my approach. And I was like, no, I need to definitely save some money where I can pay out on my own claims. Because if we have an accident, 2-3 accidents, even if they're like $3,000 each, that it could be you can get dropped and then make your rates go up, or, you know, even coming out of pocket for the commission partner, that's a lot. So it kind of deter people from wanting to bring more cars. Like, I got to worry about, if an accident happened and I got to pay for the damage, or waiting on a claim to pay out, because sometimes claims just take months. So that was my strategy, to just take that off of not only myself, but the commission partner. So I don't have to worry myself with if something happens. I don't even have to call you. I'm going to get the car fixed, and I'll notify you when it's back running. Versus I'm putting you through the stress of the car is broken down. I need you to make a payment so we can get it back running. And, that's not the way to run proper business. And that's what I think Turo figured out pretty quickly. When they were relay rides, they didn't have trip fees. They didn't have insurance. They didn't have any of that.
Oh, no insurance?
I wouldn't say that they didn't have it, but it wasn't mandatory like some of the rentals are. Like, you can't book certain trips without insurance now. And, they didn't have that trip fee. So, I mean, when I say I paid the $45 per day, that was it. I was like, 45. This is awesome. $45 a day for like a Jeep Wrangler.
That is cheap, though.
Yes. And so they changed their business model, which I see why. And also, they had a really bad rep in the beginning, which is why I kind of stick with Lula. Although they have a bad rep, they are an insurance company. Insurance companies are for incidentals. They're not to be used as a primary source of when something happens. You should have, and they're like a backup. If you can't come through, then they can come through. So I do like the fact that they are a new company. I would love to see them thrive, which is why I still stay with the company, because Turo went through the same thing. Actually, they had to restructure their whole company. They weren't making any money. And so they were denying a lot of people's claims that were coming onto the platform for like silly reasons. Like,
I heard about that. Like
ball tires. Like, oh, your tire thread wasn't this. You didn't have pre-trip photos of your tires. And so they changed their whole model where they can actually pay out on their claims instead of denying people. And that's where all these fees came from. And that's the game. Like, you can't afford to pay out if you don't have any money put up. They couldn't do that with the 20% that they were taking from the guests, because back in the day it was just the percentage that they kept. They took their percentage and then the taxes, and that was it. But then they included the trip fee because they was realizing like, oh, this is expensive. We got to pay out on damage claims. We need somebody to be there 24/7 to answer phones. It was like a time where you couldn't even get a phone call with Turo.
For real?
Yeah, you couldn't get on the phone. It was all chat.
Dang.
Like they just became like you can call. Even us now, like as hosts, we weren't able to call like 2 years ago.
Okay.
So they definitely changed and developed. That's just why I was like, I have hope in smaller companies when they're trying. And I've seen a lot of people like drop Lula because they feel like they aren't providing a service, which indeed, like now, I only think Lula's in this position is because the industry opened up so big because of Turo. All these people thought they knew what it took to be a rental car company, and they put the company at risk. They were letting people on with one car.
Mm-hmm.
Now they changed restrictions to a minimum of 5 to kind of to reduce the amount of smaller people renting out here and there, causing accidents, like to lower their risk margin, which made sense. Even when that first started, I was like, this is crazy. They're cutting the market down by 50% on what it costs to cover a commercial vehicle. It's like $300 per car.
Yeah,
that's pretty standard. Like 150. Yeah, that's like, I was like, that's a little bit of a red flag. But also, I had heard really good stories of the payouts, so it's not all bad. And also, the owner who wrote in the Turo page, and he wrote like this long paragraph explaining his company, how he got started, and I really resonated with that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep them. I'm gonna keep them as a backup. I'm gonna keep them in my back pocket, and use them for what they're for, which is a supplement insurance. And then hopefully they'll become stable enough to the point where they are like, Turo, and they're established, and they are one of the biggest smaller companies that can take a small business that want to do private renting to bigger. But I think it was the fault of kind of the people. There's a lot of people that got out and thought like, oh, I could just rent my car out to anybody, not still realizing that it's still an insurance company. We're not here to pay out on, 4 or 5 claims. It's just not statistically possible. So a lot of people just kind of jumped in the game, and they didn't have no type of, idea that that's not something that you should be doing. You should not be doing claims on your insurance. It just shouldn't be.
Like on the Lula insurance.
On the Lula insurance, you should not. Lula is literally like if something happens and the person's insurance did not go through, then they're gonna step in and cover it. Almost as if like for whatever reason they denied your claim or something didn't go through, then it's like, okay, because that's what they're for. And now they have a lot of people that are just getting in accidents and they're having to cover damages that's just, I'm sure, are astronomical for what they're charging. Mm-hmm. So I get it. It's just, having to navigate through that and realizing like it wasn't necessarily Lula, because you can go to any company and you cannot file claims. Like you cannot do that. I don't care. You go to the best companies, State Farm, Geico, all of them. You cannot, as a commercial insurance policy, cannot continue to file claims. It's just that's not how it goes.
Because when you got these commercial policies, would you tell them you was a car rental agency?
Yeah, so they knew. Okay. Lula knows. That's literally what they do.
Well,
so
Lula knows, but your other company, whatever you.
So the other companies, they do know because they're renting a car. So the policy that you essentially would be using is the guest insurance policy. And their insurance, as long as they have full coverage, for the most part, transfers with them to whatever vehicle they drive. That's what full coverage essentially is it follows the person and not the vehicle. Liability follows the vehicle, full coverage follows the person. Mm. So if you have full coverage and you drive one of our cars and you give us your insurance policy information and you have an accident, your insurance technically should cover that. Exactly. But sometimes they don't. Stipulations like I don't know. Insurance companies make up stuff all the time. Like they choose not to pay Turo guests, even though it's a rental. But they made this new term where it's like, oh, if it's not a rental car company and it's car sharing, then we won't pay it out. So you just have to be careful, and that's what that whole line of defense is as far as having Lula as a secondary. For those rinky-dink insurance companies that find any reason to not pay out. Like, I've never seen that be a problem with the State Farms, Geico's, Allstates.
Right.
I usually don't even accept insurance unless it's like some name brand insurance. Like smaller insurance, I'll just be like, no, you got to purchase the damage waiver through us.
Even if it's full coverage?
Even if it's full coverage. And if it's full coverage, we'll keep it on file in just in case an accident. But you're going to pay additional because it's likely that they're not going to pay out. That's just, or they're not going to pay what we're asking. Because a lot of the smaller ones too, like when you're seeking rental, not only, for the rental being down, for those charges as well, they're really like not trying to pay that. And it's like, we need that because we're a company. We lost money because your person got in an accident with our car. So we're seeking not only the damages, but the amount for our car being down. And sometimes it's a real big fight when you're dealing with small companies. They're not trying to pay. So that's why I was like, yeah, we usually don't even deal with those. If you have it, great, but you are going to pay an additional damage waiver just to have, depending on, and our damage waiver doesn't cover everything. It just covers so much damage, and then they will still have a deductible too. So in the event that might work out for them, so say they purchase the minimum damage waiver $5 a day, but they are responsible for up to $3,000 out of pocket. Now, they will probably be more likely to still use their insurance because they don't want us to come after them for $3,000.
Right.
So it works out perfect. We still made our money for our damage waiver that goes into our pot to cover our vehicle, all of our vehicles overall. And then you're going to use your insurance to cover the vehicle still, even if it is Kool-Aid insurance and it's not like the best policy. The possibility they may still give us something for it so we don't have to take that whole loss. And whatever additional loss, like I said, we try to make money off of claims. At that point, I probably wouldn't be making any money, but at least if I can walk away kind of straight, like, okay, we even. Maybe I didn't get the money for the lost days, but we did get our damage covered. That's okay to me. That's then versus just a complete total loss. And we have to go tap into our account and we have to pay for the damage and we have to lose for the days that we, rented the car out for.
Okay. Have you ever filed a claim for like loss of depreciation or... You know what I'm talking about?
I have not.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Mm-hmm. How come you haven't done that?
I feel like actually I have, but I think I got pushback for it, and it was like a very cheap insurance, and that's probably why.
And they wasn't trying to.
They wasn't trying to, yeah. And so sometimes when they do that, you have to do extra stuff, and it wasn't kind of worth it in that circumstance. It was so little damage. I was just trying to see what I could get because it was a brand new car, and the damage was under $500. But it wasn't under. It was like right at $500, but it was like not worth the going back and forth. I actually did try to do. It's a site where they supposed to help you recover that. Mm-hmm. I feel like I filled that out and I never got anything back, and I just kind of let it go. Okay. But yeah, I've heard of people seeking that, and I'll definitely. Anytime that I have had an accident, I do try to get it. Like I've tried. So I feel like the last accident I had was with my personal insurance, and they really kind of don't be going for that. Like trying to get extra stuff from your own personal, but other people's, like I definitely be trying it. Right. And it's just really if the insurance company goes for it, or if you really have the time to kind of go after them for that because they just try to push back
it's
on
a hassle. I tried it before and it was just such a hassle. I had to go to court and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the court
and
was
they're
like,
gonna do
need this. And I was just like, well, all right, I guess I'm not going to get it.
Exactly. So that's why it's like you got to kind of pick your battles. And sometimes they'll pay it. So it's like, definitely ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. Don't, because people do get it. It happens. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're an insurance company and they're trying everything. They know, like, oh, is he really going to spend money to go to court just to get this extra money? Let's try him. Right. That's how they're looking at it as.
They some scammers too, though, just like the dealerships.
Oh, yeah.
But, okay, so when you was doing Turo and private rentals, you was using Lula insurance, but you also had your own insurance, commercial insurance for the business.
No. So nope, I had my own personal insurance and Lula insurance at the time. No commercial, not like the commercial policy I only had was the Lula. So that is the commercial policy that I'm talking about.
And your personal.
Exactly.
Okay, but now that you're just strictly private rentals, you don't do any Lula anymore, right? Or you do?
No, I do have Lula. That is our backbone, actually. So we do have Lula, and now we are starting our own account so that we can.
So you got your own personal. I mean, not you. You got your commercial insurance with the business now.
No, so we have Lula, which is the commercial policy.
Okay.
That is our commercial policy.
With your business.
So business insurance is separate. We don't have that yet.
Okay.
Which is gonna be kind of like encompassing the bond that will be required, which we also don't have yet because you have to get the city to agree on where you're gonna actually be at. So I'm licensed through the state, but the next step would be to apply for a $50,000 bond, and then in order to officially operate, you would need to the city that you're going to be located in, they have to agree to it, which would be Homewood. And based off of this location, I have not applied yet because the guy let me know that they probably going to definitely have an issue because of the parking here.
What's wrong with the parking?
They want the parking just can't be because of the type of business that I'm doing. Homewood's just particular. Like, they're not like other cities. Like, I feel like if I go up the street, they'll be like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want to do. Yeah. Homewood's not like that. Like, if you go up the street, you'll see all of those low-end dealerships, and then you come to Homewood, they don't allow that. There's only 2 dealerships in Homewood, and they made it a rule that you have to have 2 acres of land to be a dealership, specifically, so that they can put people like those smaller dealerships out to not make their city look bad, which is, like, not a bad thing because it's like, it does have a bad look when you have all these raggedy cars sitting in the corner, you know, all these small car body shops. Like, no, it's not a good look. So that's the only thing when I come to Homewood, I have to come ready.
So like, Homewood is a nice area.
It is very nice.
Okay. Honestly, this is the first time I've been in Homewood.
Oh, so really? Yes. Okay.
Probably drove through.
Very giving like what the name is, home. Very home vibes. Okay. It's a very good vibe. Mixed culture out here, but very like Homewood don't play. Like they pay attention to everything. Like I think I've been here not even a year, and they probably have somebody come and take pictures maybe like every other month to make sure you're in compliance with their city. Yeah. Like the light, a lady had a light. She put it in the window. The next day, they was like, you have to take any blinking lights out. There can be no blinking lights. So many stipulations. They don't want the lettering on the outside of the window. Just stuff that's like...
I'm surprised.
They have time to keep up with. Like, usually cities don't have the time to walk around and evaluate every business, but they are doing that. So that's why I was like, I want to be in Homewood. So I think that when I do finally step out, which will be in the next couple of months, but before I even did that, I want to have my account ready, because when you get your bond license, it's basically stating that you are able to pay this money out. The bond is also another insurance you don't want to tap into. Like, it is a one-time thing. Like, you're saying to the state is like, you have this much money to cover any incidents that your businesses may cause. And if you don't have that money, then the bond will come and pay for that. And then I'm pretty sure you'll be out of business after that, because nobody want to give you a bond after that, because you're supposed to technically have that money. And so that goes hand in hand with the having the money in your account type thing. So if something happens, your business can cover for that. But that's why you have the liability as well, because overall the liability should be encompassing that. But then depending on your liability plan or limits, maybe the limit for Illinois is $20,000 per vehicle. So that's a little amount. That's what Lula offers, which is like really low, considering if you get in an accident and you take out a light pole because your car jumped the curb, takes out a light pole, hits another car. That is easily some $30,000. You know what I'm saying? Don't let you total a $30,000 car. That's 10 already. Then you took out a city pole. We're at 40, 50,000. So that means your company is now responsible for those additional thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that you're insured up. You broke your company down into the proper, like you do not want your actual company to hold the same assets that your business is holding. So, for example, I have two companies, Adeniyi Enterprise, which is the actual rental car company, and then I have AE Partners, which is the commission partner side, which is actually the valuable asset side where all of the money will go into the accounts. So if somebody tries to sue Adeniyi Enterprise, we don't have much to sue. Right. All we have is probably like the operational funds, but none of the actual value and assets. The cars will be held in a total different business name. So say somebody do get in an accident and they do extend that and then they try to come after the business, there's only so much that you're going to get, versus if they see that you have all your assets in one spot, he's sued easily. You know what I'm saying? If you see, and then they show your financial documents, like this is what this business does. Like this is what it makes. We can settle at this because this is what I got. They can't get out of pocket and say like, oh, I want $1 million just because that's what you're profiting. Like this is what we have. This is what I can show you. This is what I can offer you, and this is what you can take or you cannot. So that is definitely one of the most important things is structuring the actual rental car company separate from where your cars, if you have any cash vehicles, you want them in a separate business so that when something happens, they can't come after the business with the money.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. As far as the insurance though, just to go back to that, mm-hmm. for your, now that you're all private, if someone doesn't have personal insurance under their name, how do you handle that? They get the waiver, or you said it was like a $5 a day?
So they either get the waiver. We also have rental cover too, which is through HQ. Okay. So HQ provides a insurance company that they can purchase. So when they go online, they actually can select insurance. And that's usually where I'll guide them to. Like if they don't have it, I'll actually cancel out their stuff and I'll tell them to go rebook through there so that they have the rental cover, which is a $0 deductible. And luckily I've never had to use it. I had one person, she did get in an accident, but it was it was another person's fault. And he didn't have insurance. And I could have very well filed the claim with rental cover, but it just was like such a headache because like by the time I got the police report and she had drove the car, it was a crack in it. And we actually worked it out because he was going to pay it out of pocket. And then he kind of stopped responding. But I felt like instead of doing an insurance claim, I'd much rather go the legal route and just go after him for it because I would love to see the outcome of that. So that way I can kind of use that as my way in the future. So if somebody else does damage my car, and even if we do have the money and I pay for it out of our funds, I can legally go after them and potentially have their license taken until they repay. Because that is something you can request as an insurance company. Now, I've never done it personally, but as an insurance company, if you hit someone and that insurance company pays pays out for their customer, they can ask the state to withhold your license for that amount. So you'll never get to drive again until that's paid down. So you're gonna get your money back, essentially. And so that's why drive. Exactly, and they're going to get it down, especially if it's like under $5,000. Eventually, some way, somehow, they're gonna want to pay that off. So, and at least if they don't, it's like, oh, you don't need to drive then because you don't want to have insurance. So, you need to stay off of the road.
Right. Okay, so let's get into kind of promotions.
Okay.
How do you promote your business? How do you get people into your cars knowing that you're not on the Turo platform anymore? They're not helping you with that. It's all up to you to get people to call you or
Google. Google Ads. Actually, I did maybe like short time. It didn't take much either. It depends on your area and how good you would do and those type of statistics. I think I got like a really good spot as far as where I'm at. I'm close to an enterprise, And my business name is also Enterprise. So that is another catchy way that's been drawing attention to. So when people Google Enterprise, my ad will automatically pop up. Sometimes it'll pop up where they think they're calling Enterprise. So I get people sometimes like, I booked the car with you guys, and I have to like, listen, this is not Enterprise. And sometimes it's just like they confused, but sometimes I've been able to convert from that. Like they were like, Enterprise is closed. They was looking up Enterprise, but it's Saturday. Enterprise closes early on Saturdays. We don't. And then on Sunday, Enterprise closed altogether, and we're open. So we know those are our hottest days, Saturday and Sunday. Because everybody is looking and they're seeing like every rental car company is closed, but this one, let me call.
Right. And so, I really need a car.
Exactly. So that's what's been really driving my business, is being open Saturday, Sundays, having the similar name to Enterprise, and then really just word of mouth. Like I think that I've had so many people, like I get so many repeat guests from even years ago. And then, or they have told some family and then they came and rent. Like it just seems to just kind of, it's been going at like a really nice pace. And this is my first time having this many vehicles ever. So it's like I went from like having 8 to 20, and to still kind of get everything to still move was like really a good thing. But now I'm in a spot where it's like, all right, now I need to build up. So I'm comfortably 20 out. So when I do have 30, 40, I don't have to worry about how I'm getting these cars out. Because that is important. You don't want to have all these cars and just have them sitting.
Okay, so really you pay. So you don't pay for Google.
I do. Google itself is free, and I actually was doing pretty good with it just by itself. But then, like if it gets a little slow, I'll run an ad. Put $20 day budget on there, and I'll just let the ad kind of run, and then I'll cut it off, and it'll still be bringing me income in. So it like really works out.
Okay. So that's mostly what you do, just run an ad on Google for the most part. You don't do any social media ads?
Not yet. I actually just looked into it yesterday. I'm thinking of doing a Facebook ad. I think that's going to really help drive the business, because right now I'm changing the model more to Turo. Like we're going to have a trip fee. We're doing the damage waiver on all rentals now. Like before it was none, unless, now it's going to be all. Like no more risk taking. Everybody has to pay for the damage waiver, if not full coverage that they have already. But in restructuring that, I realized that my guest is not so much ideal for Turo anymore, because I'm charging almost the same, which is kind of conflicting, because I can convert someone still, but it's almost like, what's the point? That's how the guest is going to look at it. Like, I'm paying you about the same as Turo. I can just get on Turo. That doesn't make sense. Plus a deposit, because we still have our deposits in play.
And you don't need a deposit on Turo.
Nope. Right? Yeah. And some you do, though. Actually, I found out it depends on your age, because I just saw a guest who rented like a 2016 Nissan. He paid $240. No, more than that. He paid more than $240, because the deposit was $200, and then he paid like $140 for the day.
Not on Turo.
On Turo, and I made $44. Turo took $100, and then he had for the whole trip. It was 1 day trip, and he brought it back the same day. He picked it up at like 9 and dropped it off at 10 p.m. I could not believe that. So to know that people have that type of money to spend, I was like, I ain't doing the game all wrong. And it was like a cash car that we bought that's like, I was like, if we could charge that on a daily rate, we would make the car money back in a month.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's heck. So the market for what people have is out there. It's just, I've been in a tricky spot of like, I've had so many long-term clients. I've never had to flip people in and out of cars as much. I've always had a good long-term base, to the point where people call and I didn't have a car. Now I have cars where I'm looking for a more fast-paced turnover rate, but that means I need to be in contact with more guests, which I've never experienced. I'm like in that part of my business where I'm figuring out like, okay, how can I constantly get more and more new guests versus the same ones? Because I've got that down pat. I've built a relationship, people come back. But the faster paced money is in short-term guests, because they can pay more, because they're not trying to keep the vehicle. They don't need to keep. They just need it for what they need it for, and they will pay for what they need. And so to think that I can make $430 in a weekend versus $430 in a week, because that's about what we are charging on a base flat rate. It's $430 a week, and then it's even a little bit more after taxes, so maybe like $450, $460 or something like that.
But you're doing more work though, like that, right?
With turning the cars over, yes. But it's worth the money because it's so much more money. If I make $400 in a weekend, and even if I rent it out during the week, we're looking at more like $800 a week, $1,000 a week. That's worth it. That's worth the more of the work because it ain't that much more work. Right, it's more work, but it ain't that much more work. Exactly. So and I got people to do that, right. So it doesn't even matter. In fact, that's better for the workers because I want them to make more money. Mm-hmm. It's not beneficial if we got long terms because they don't ever come back.
They don't, right? And they be like, well, I ain't.
Exactly. So it worked out when I had a smaller fleet. They were gone. I barely had to clean the cars, so that was more money in my pocket. They stayed gone. It was just a consistent flow of this money coming in every week. And now I think I'm ready for the in and outs. Like the more I could charge, like these people are paying like at least one something a day for 2014, 2015 cars on Turo. So it's like, I just want a little piece of that. Mm-hmm. I don't want all of it. You don't got to pay me all of it, but we want something very close to what you're paying on Turo, at least close to the 90s.
Right.
So I'm working my way up there.
Okay, so the people who you usually work with are maybe they got their car, maybe their car is in the shop, or maybe they going somewhere like out of state. Or do you ever do like rent cars out to people who want to drive Uber or do DoorDash, stuff like that?
I used to, but I don't no more. Strictly because when Lula changed their policy. Well, I don't believe they actually never changed it. It was always their policy. I think they just kind of made it more of a point, like you cannot rent your car out to people for business. Like that's just not, and it's too much wear and tear on the car. And that's why I was like, yeah, y'all getting paid, but I know people that's paying the same thing and they're just going to work and going home.
Right.
Why would I do all the miles on my car, have all these people in my back seat? And then it's just more risk because the car is being driven a lot more. You're just going to get in an accident eventually. Yeah, somebody going to hit, ding, something. So it's just like, I got my mind away from that. I was so obsessed with like, they're going to pay and they need the car. Like there's a lot of people that need a car. There's some people that don't even need a car. I know somebody right now. He don't need a car. Like he probably need it, but he don't need no $91 a day car. And he is doing everything in his power to make sure he get them payments to me. Because he wants to drive that kind of a car. I got cheaper cars in my fleet, but I've realized that this isn't about a saving game. Like some people just want to feel good and what they get, like they want what they want. And I'm not here to convince them otherwise. I'm not here to give you a financial lesson on how your money could be better spent if you just saved it and bought a car. That is not my job. I just stopped trying to make it make sense. Like, it's not for me to make sense. The only thing I'm here to make sense of is, like, putting you in the right car. Right. Like, what do you want that you can pay me? And that's it. And it's worked out thus far as people just, because I thought, like, well, this is what people want. They want this. No, they just want, like, I'll be like, okay, you want to save, they'll tell me they want to save money, but in the same breath, they're willing to spend $10 more a day for a newer car. Like, what? I thought you just needed to get to work. So it's not, style. Yeah, in style. So that's the thing. I was just like, you know what? It's not for me to understand.
Yeah, you just want to cater to their needs.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm just here to provide what you need. Exactly. Or how you do what you do. Right. This is how I get paid. And if you're happy, I'm happier. That is a great thing. Like when the customer in the business is happy, like you can't lose that way.
Right.
So.
And we didn't really talk about how you buy cars today. You know, we talked about it when you bought the first 5 cars, mm-hmm. But you know, now that you have your business and everything, like, are you buying these cars, cash cars, through your business, or are you still doing it personal?
I have an auction license, okay. And right now I personally like Facebook Marketplace best right now. They have the best, better than the auction. The auction is very crazy right now. Now, it's a lot of work that goes into the auction. That's the thing. Like, it's not like I thought when I first got in. I thought, I'm going to go get me a $5,000 car. It's going to be in pristine condition. It's going to have this many miles. No. I don't know if it's just because of the car shortage that we just had. And it's just like, it seems like a bunch of recycled junk at the auction, and the prices is so high that I just can't understand it. Like, you literally are paying almost like some of these dealerships are. And I will say from experience, because I'm not like this highly experienced person that's going to the auction, I'm not consistent in it, so I know that there are deals out there, and I'm not going to say that they're not. It's just like with all of the work that I'm doing, I don't have the time like I would like to. And so I just went to the auction last week. We went through so many cars only to find one car that was like in this guy's price range. Because I personally have not purchased any cars because I have people bringing them to me. Don't need to purchase them. People just bring them to me. And then as I make more and more money, I start to add my own cash cars on. But we found a car, and when we picked it out, it was like a 2016 Malibu, and it was actually in good condition compared to all the other vehicles that we looked at. Car had went up, and I missed it. I was working, and that's the thing, like, you know, when they go up, yeah, so it was at the auction, but I bid online. So you don't have to be physically there. You could just do it online. So I knew it was coming up on Tuesday, but the way the auction worked, like, if you auctioning, you really should be sitting down all day. But like me doing all the work that I'm doing, I couldn't. I was like checking the guest out when the text came through, like, your car is going up into lane, whatever. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna go sit down. Got totally distracted. The whole hour I look up like, oh, I done missed this car that we sold. So now I have to go back, go through some cars again, hopefully find a match that's like budget price range. And even after you find the perfect car, pray to God you don't get outbidded. Because now you just finally found the car. Now what if somebody outbid you? Now you got to go back to the drawing board. So it's not easy with the auction. I personally prefer the marketplace, which is a lot more riskier. But it is, if you do your due diligence, it can be rewarding, because it's just like certain people on there that's trying to sell their car that not the auction, the dealership is lowballing them on. And so it makes sense. Like, we just bought a car from Facebook that probably in the auction would go for at least $12,000, at least on the starting. And we got it for $8,000. And the taxes like another $500. And then the taxes in the auction are so high, it's 12%, I believe, like 12%. So yeah, so when one of my commission partners bought a car for $12,000, then he had to come back and pay another $1,500 in taxes. That's a lot, if you ask me. That ain't no deal. The deal's not dealing.
That's more tax than the retail tax.
Exactly. Because it's supposed to be dealer tax, because you're supposed to be getting a deal. But the economy is so messed up with the cars. They're buying cars over what they're worth, and they're reselling them to people and financing them for even more. So like a car that is, if you look up some cars, like, you'll see some cars that are used higher than brand new. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah, that's
impossible,
crazy.
But they're doing it, and people are buying it. They're buying it because it's just like they only got what they can work for. The market don't have these surplus of cars like before the shortage. Now it's just like recycled junk of the cars that we already have versus having all these new incoming cars, so that way it gives you like more to work with. Like, now it's just like we all picking amongst other people's junk. Like, that's what I feel like. But I will, like I said again, state that I am not well versed. I have not went to another auction other than Mannheim, and there are other auctions. I think that is something that you would have to really hone in on and just start like researching different auctions, who got the best. Because right now, Mannheim is like the biggest auto auction that you can really pretty much go to, and you're bidding with the big dogs.
It's not one of Homewood?
No, it's a Matson, and that's considered the Chicago location, and they're all over the United States.
Okay.
So you're competing with the big dogs, because this is like the name brand auction place. There's smaller ones that you probably actually come out with a better deal. But this one in particular is the big one, which is supposed to have the most cars, the best cars. But really, you can't determine the best cars by auction because the auction is an auction. You don't know how a person treated their car when they got repoed. You just don't know. But ultimately, you're bidding against banks,
banks.
Bank Ally, dealerships. Exactly. Right? So that's why it's like some of these cars will be going for prices that I will feel like I can walk into a dealership and pay cash. It wouldn't even make sense. That's why I'm like, y'all bidding, but they're bidding that high because if you buy a $12,000 car that's worth $12,000 because you can still turn around and sell it for $20,000.
Just because the market right now.
Yeah, because you're gonna finance it and you're gonna make your money in finance fees.
Oh, right.
So exactly. So I was like, that's where they're building it up at. But if you're doing it as I need to buy it as a play to buy it at the cheapest rate so that my, what I'm actually making is more. That's a different strategy. You can't just buy a $12,000 car that should be this much. It just don't really make sense. Even though it'll work out, it'll be okay because it's essentially not worse than financing. Even though you pay a little more, it's still cash and it still holds value better than it would if it was financed because you paid it already and now you're just waiting on your return as far as it running or being crashed out.
Right. And if it's out there consistently, then it's going to come back in however many months.
Exactly.
Okay. So, do you think that the rental car space is too saturated now? Too many people opening up their own rental car businesses, and then you got Turo. Just from what you know, I mean, maybe you may not know for sure. But
I don't think that it is. I think Turo's oversaturated, but like private rental companies are not. I think they will try, but none of them will really succeed. Like they'll be here and gone today, here today, gone tomorrow. Like a lot of people think that this is so simplified. Like you really have to be a specific individual to like take this on and actually make it out unscathed, like make it out without, damaging your business because somebody just totaled something so bad that it take you out
or just losing a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, losing a whole bunch of money. Like it's going to so that's why I'll never believe that it'll be so saturated. People will come in and out and it'll actually make people traction to be like, oh, there's private rent. So, they'll be on the lookout for them. But as those ones, they're not going to stand a chance. You jump in, you think you know, and then you find out you don't know. And so that's why I was so blessed to have started out with a few cars and to gain an understanding like this ain't going like I thought. This ain't it. This is what needs to be done. And then it will not work unless this is done.
Right.
And so
at least you tried it though. And now you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's like it's just like you got to try it and see. You're not gonna know unless you try to take that risk. So
exactly.
That's good that you even took that risk. So what is next for your business and just like your business ventures? What do you got planned?
So I am actually going to be adding a partner on, and he is the guy I was telling you about who had brought on all the other people. He bought 5 cars. He took a risk in my business. And it was like so awesome when we met because I was getting so tired of getting so many messages. How do you do this? How do you do that? To the point where I was like, you know what? I'm giving all this information out for free. This is like overwhelming. I don't mind giving information out. I was all day. But it was to the point where he messaged me and I was like, you're going to have to book a call. And I charged him $75 for an hour, him picking my brain. And at first I thought he just wanted information on how he can do it himself. And as I talked to him, he was like, no, I'm looking for someone to take on my cars. And I was like, well, you contacted the right place. And it's been a hit ever since. Like, he literally took a risk. He brought his cars on. And he's like, I want to see how this goes before I tell my friends about it. It started going good. We brought on some more people. And now we're talking about investing 300 cars. So now we're just pretty much getting the infrastructure ready for that. Because like the 300 cars isn't the issue. It's the problem, the people. And having everybody like make sure the structure's there. Because, as easy as it could be to go get a loan out and get those cars, it's not as easy to keep them rented, and then have reliable employees that are going to do their job properly and make sure that the business does not fall apart because people aren't checking licenses and they aren't doing the checkout pictures and everything isn't like a symphony. Like that's how it should be operating when you have, I mean, it should be like everybody knows their position. You cannot not know your position because it will go bad. Like one person, like I was gone for the weekend and that's what actually prompted me to like really be like, oh no, this can never happen. I was in New York and I'm on the phone for 30, 45 minutes walking people through what to do. I'm on the phone looking at IDs that are expired and the guest is picking up a car. Like stuff like that. Like it just can't be happening. And I was like, I can see how quickly that could go sour so bad. You got 300 cars. You got 20 people just you got 20 people. For one, I feel like I'm really cautious about who I rent to. Granted, you cannot like really read a person, but like I feel like I've done pretty good with the people that I choose because I've turned people away and I don't care what the reason, I'll make up a reason. You could be here and I'm like, you need to have full coverage insurance. I mean, I even mentioned insurance, but like once they got here, you don't have it. That I'm sorry, you're gonna need to book with that.
And that was just because you got like a bad
feeling or yeah. Something. And usually I'm right. It's like the like people that'll say like I feel like somebody else is gonna be driving a car. Those type of people for sure. I can detect them out from a mile away. Somebody else gonna rent the car. In fact on Turo, the way I stage it is like most of my pickups are contactless. But I have an automatic message that comes through and immediately states like I can't, wait to meet you. Please have your physical, valid, current driver's license in capital letters. So that way it's like, because they think, I already know when, depending on like when people book, some of the things that they say when I know that they're on some bull crap. Like you're trying to rent a car and your license is either like not valid or you're trying to have somebody else pick up the car. I had an incident the other day. A guest booked a car for 10:30 p.m. pickup. And I made sure that she thought she was going to meet me. However, I just was going to come bring the key. But I always make them think even to the last second where like they're on their way. And I say, you know what? Like once they pull up, you know what? I actually have to leave the key behind. So that way they've already prepped in their mind to think somebody's going to be there versus they're not. Mm-hmm. So the girl books the Tesla and then I asked her, like, can you meet at 11? Because I was actually in an appointment at the time. And I couldn't get the key and it wouldn't have been able to like, now had I not been in that appointment, I may have done that. And like, it was so many things that happened that led up to that because that car just got on my platform. So it didn't send that original message. So that was another like thing that made me think like, wait a minute, she's booking late. It didn't send that message because usually they say right then and there like, oh, are you going to be at the car? And that's when they ask like, how am I getting the keys? And I know like you're trying to, hold on one second. Where you gonna go? But yeah, I'll be like, yeah, you're trying to get the car when I like I know what this is about. So when she was like, oh, I can meet at 11, I said, okay, great. So when 11 rolled around, I was like, how long until you get here? I'm like getting the pictures or whatever. And she's like, oh, she said, oh, I just called an Uber. I won't be there for 30 minutes. And I thought, like, that's annoying because at this point, I wanted to wait for her for real. I'm like, something weird is going on. And then...
Like 11:30.
11:30 at night, p.m. And so then I was like, you know what? That was like 20 minutes. Because like when I read her message at 5-10 minutes already passed, I said, oh, so you'll be here like 11:20. I'll be waiting. And she was like, oh, well, it might be longer than that because I got my kids and I need to navigate. I thought that, I didn't know my husband was going to pick it up. Like, no, that's not what's going to happen tonight. And so then she was like, can you do drop off or meet me? No, because somebody was always driving that car. It was something you're going to let somebody drive. Now, when the car gets to you, kudos to you and whoever and what y'all doing. But like, I just feel like if I can stop that happening in the beginning and you think that you're that slick, you're going to try to have somebody else pick it up. You're not responsible enough to pick it up yourself. That's too much. So yeah, and it's like problematic. Like that means that whoever's renting it can't rent it themselves and they're probably not even allowed. Don't A, have a driver's license, B, let alone have a car or insurance. So it's just like I would rather cancel that. And we got paid $47 to not even move the car. So that was like a great Yeah, I do that all the time with those people. Like, are you gonna be meeting me? Like, I usually actually, for the most part, if I can, just try to meet as many guests as I can, because that's my selling point. I try to get to know them, and then after, like, see, like, oh, this is somebody I want to rent to. So for the most part, I do try to meet them, but if I can't absolutely not meet them, I do leave the key behind and at least try to meet them at drop off. And if I meet them at drop off, I usually text them if everything went good and the car looks good. I'll text them like, hey, this is my personal number. If you're looking to rent in the future, you contact me directly. And that's pretty worked out pretty good for me.
Okay, that's good. So you got your system set up, and I mean, yeah, like it sounds like you be listening to your gut a
Oh
lot.
yeah, you got
So
to.
that's important. But for the people listening and watching who want to get into the private rental business or even Turo, can you just give them some advice for getting started? Something that they should know or just consider?
Oh yeah. The first thing you want to consider is your first purchase. You want to make sure your first purchase is a good purchase, the vehicle that you choose, and if you cannot finance, that's the best way to go. That's ultimately the best foot forward you could put yourself in because you don't have to worry about the depreciation and you would not have to worry about if the car is down coming out of pocket. So that is my advice. And also, if you're thinking about doing it long term, definitely do at least 3 or 4 cars. Like I heard a lot of people like they want to do Turo, they want to do this and that, and they like, oh, I'm gonna start off with 1, 2 cars. I think a good number to start is like 4 or 5 because you could have very well 2 cars down and then you won't have no business. And if you got 2 notes, you're in a real bad position. So at least even if you do go the finance route and you have 3 to 4 vehicles, you can manage if you have some cars down. So that way you're not like struggling because it happens. Um, but yeah, that's the best advice. Pick your car wisely. If you could pay for it cash, definitely pay for it cash. And if you're going to go all out and you really want to make some money, definitely do like 3 or 4 cars to start.
Okay, yeah, I think that's some good advice. I definitely agree with that as well. But yeah, that concludes the interview. Can you just let everyone know where they can find you, social media, and then if they want to schedule a call to learn more, and because you have so much good information, so
Thank you.
other people out there, if they want to learn from you, how can they contact you, reach out?
All right. I am on Instagram. My Instagram name is Queen Mia, and that's queen.m.i.a. And then you can also find me on my business page, which is Adeniyi Enterprise. Um,
And can you just spell Adeniyi?
Adeniyi, Adeniyi, and then Enterprise. And then also, if you want to contact me, you can also contact me directly on the Instagram page, or you can contact our office, which is 773-595-3171.
All right. So make sure y'all contact her and rent a car with her. She does very good business. And that concludes the Phwealthy Podcast. Thank you again. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Don't forget to stay Phwealthy. Bye.
Thank you.